Sarah here from Highland Haven Australian Shepherds and Highland Haven Dog Training, and welcome to episode 3 of season 2 of Dog for Thought. Joining me is my co-host, daughter, and dog trainer extraordinaire, Sophie.
Hi, everyone.
Tell me, what's going on in Dogland? Anything interesting happening?
Well, didn't you want to tell your dream that happened?
What dream?
The dream about the orcas and the
All right, so I guess this can count for an update in Dogland. All right, so I had this horrible dream the other night that all of our dogs were eaten by orcas.
It was confusing because you were telling me what was going on in the dream. And I was like, where were we living where there was orcas, and why were they getting eaten?
I don't know. Apparently, we were living on sort of like a houseboat colony. So everyone was sort of like on houseboats. And it was like in the Pacific Northwest, and the dogs would be like out on the deck, and an orca would swim by and like jump up and eat them. And I realized that all of our dogs, all 9 of them, had been eaten by orcas. It was very traumatic. I was very upset.
It makes me think of when we went on vacation. What was it, like New Mexico? And
2 years ago this week.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And you had that dream or that nightmare that Gianna died.
And all the dogs were in crates and they were starving.
Yeah.
Because Gianna was dog sitting.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
so.
I feel like we've talked about that on the podcast before.
Well, apparently I'm having that same anxiety, but we're not going on vacation, so.
Yeah, I don't know what that's all about.
I don't know what it's about either. But needless to say, I was happy when I woke up and all of, well, what do I have? 7 dogs in my room? Mm-hmm. All of them were laying around on and off the bed in the bedroom. All fine. No orca teeth marks, nothing.
Oh, good.
It was exhausting.
So worried about that.
I hate that when you have a dream and it's so bad and you wake up and you're more tired than when you went to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I have those dreams and they're like about family, like something's happened to you or Jacob or Dad or whatever. But this one was the dogs. It was horrible. Somebody said to me in the dream, you seem fine. You know all your dogs are dead. And I'm like, I don't know. Asteroid. I don't know what that was about.
Oh my gosh.
What else is going on with the dogs?
I feel like it's been pretty relaxed, besides, getting them prepared so we can like take pictures for that, selling the house and stuff, which is kind of stressful having 9 dogs and the training dogs to be able to, shuffle everyone around. But
yes, so we are going to be having the photos taken to put our house on the market. We have a signed contract for a new house, and they have to come in and take pictures tomorrow. Actually, it's not going to be so bad tomorrow because we can just shuffle the dogs around. But then I think this weekend we're going to be showing it, which is we're going to have something like 12 or 14 dogs that we have to get off the premises for an extended period of time. So yeah, that's super stressful. Mm-hmm. Maybe why I had the orca dream. I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah. So I don't know. I have some plans. We're going to go into 2 different groups. It's going to be all hands on deck. But yeah, I always say future Sarah is very clever. Future Sarah will figure this shit out and we'll get it done. And hopefully it's really only just one day of like back-to-back viewings. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully we'll have some offers. Yeah. We won't have to do this too much because it is very stressful to sell a house when you have so many dogs.
Yep.
That you have to get off the premises.
This kind of leads into our topic because they all have to be able to be cool in a crate.
That's true. Mm-hmm. So today's topic, episode 3, season 2, is called The 6 Quality of Life Skills Every Dog Should Know. So we talk about this a lot as trainers, like kind of, blown away when dogs come to us and they don't know some of the real basics. And you think, geez, it must have been so hard to live with this dog. Mm-hmm. But I do want to start by saying this topic, I don't want anyone to feel like we're shaming them. Mm-hmm. Like if their dogs don't have all of these 6 skills, that somehow they're deficient or they're doing something wrong. It is more to sort of bring to light what we think are the most important quality of life behaviors so that you can have a good quality of life, thus the name, for both from your dog's point of view as well as your point of view. And ultimately, a happy dog, a calm, relaxed dog, is a dog who understands the rules and boundaries of their home, of their world, right? And if we don't create really common sense rules and and structured activities that the dog understands what their part in that activity is, then you get a dog who will act out either through anxiety or destructive chewing or, just horrible behavior. Or they turn inward and, just completely melt down when they do something like go to the vet. And it's just a sad thing. I know Jacob can speak to this. He's a vet assistant part-time. He also is in full-time school, but he's been working as a vet assistant for 4 years, Jacob? Yeah. Long time. So Jacob sees this a lot. Dogs coming into the vet that really completely have a meltdown for, a run-of-the-mill vet visit. So, yeah. Should we get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So these are in no particular order. I just scribbled them down. We talked about this briefly. I think for us, a good off switch is a super important quality of life skill.
Yeah. And part of this is, if you've never had to do this for like your own dog, your dog might naturally just have an off switch. I think this definitely more leans towards high drive dogs. So if you have any sort of high drive dog, I think this is like top most important skill that they need to have.
Oh, anxious dog too.
And yeah, anxious too. But I think of like a big lazy like bully breed. They don't really need an off switch because they are.
All right. Well, why don't you start by defining what we mean by an off switch?
So off switch meaning like when we are doing nothing. So like how we do like Netflix and chew. This is your time to go lay down and chew a bone. Like this is the off time of the day. This is not, oh, let's go play fetch. Let's go do this. No, I'm working or I'm watching TV or it's the end of the day. This is the time that you need to go chew a bone and do your own thing.
Right. You need to go turn off.
Yeah.
Right. So it's different from, say, the place command where we're putting a dog in a specific place, like on a place bed or something like that, a cot or on a dog bed or even in a crate, where it's very structured and they need to stay there until they're told they can get off. That's more on the training side of it. And we do teach that in our program because it is a really useful obedience skill. An off switch, we use the term go lay down, which I probably say in my life on a daily basis, I don't know, 50 times a day.
Yeah, we say it a lot in our house.
What it tells our dogs and eventually our training dogs when they start to understand what we mean when we tell them go lay down is to literally go find something to entertain yourself appropriately, preferably laying down, right?
Yeah.
You can also sort of go hang out with another dog, but what we're really looking for is for a dog to go grab a bone or a toy and go lay down and chew it, or literally go lay down and go to sleep.
Yep.
Super important for quality of life because when we are busy doing something, if I'm working on the computer or talking on the phone or watching TV or cooking dinner, whatever, I don't want them underfoot, bumping me with their nose, asking for my attention.
Scratching, being like, hey, and then that behavior turns into barking, and then that behavior turns into nipping your ankles. So, I think if you don't kind of essentially nip that in the butt, it could overflow into anxiety.
Right. Because the dog doesn't really know what to do with themselves.
He's like, oh, well, what am I supposed to do? We always do stuff together. And it's like, no, like I'm cooking dinner. Like you need to go chill.
That being said, I am fine with our dogs coming up and bumping me with their noses and asking for attention.
Like a quick pet and then being like, okay, go lay
Even
down.
I could give them a long pet if I feel like it. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times I will put a time limit on that because Aussies can get very clingy. And I will, I'll be working on the computer and I'll come and somebody will bump me with their nose and want some scratches. I'm happy to do it. Mm-hmm. And then when I'm done, I can say, okay, enough, go lay down. And they know that's it. I'm done doling out attention right now. I'm busy doing something and you need to go occupy yourself. Mm-hmm. Super, super important skill. It also, ultimately what it is self-regulation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the dog learning to regulate their energy level, their emotions, all of those things, and just sort of settle down and turn off. Like you say, some breeds do this naturally are just sort of layabouts as a breed or as a personality. Most dogs are not, though, or at least most dogs that we see here in training.
Training, definitely. I think that's probably one of the biggest skills. Pretty much every single dog we have to really, say you need to go relax, because we have a lot of dogs that come with anxiety.
Yeah, and they're in a strange place, at least initially with us, and they're with strange people and strange dogs, and everything is new and uncomfortable, and they're anxious. So they'll do a lot of pacing. And I think we've touched on this before in previous episodes. Like, they do a lot of pacing. They'll lap the room, just walk around and around and around, because they're nervous. And teaching them to go lay down actually teaches them to self-regulate. Some dogs learn it really quickly. Other dogs take a much longer time to learn it. And of course, it is also developmental. So if you're talking about a puppy as opposed to a 3-year-old or 4-year-old dog, and we have dogs of all ages that come for training, not just puppies. Obviously the adults usually have more natural skills because of their age. Not always, because sometimes the long time that they've learned this bad habit, right? This long ingrained bad habit, sort of fighting against their maturity, and sometimes it can be just as hard.
But I always feel like when they do kind of get over that hump, it's like
yes, a
it's
big
like,
exhale.
and then they're just like, I'll go lay down whenever I want to go. I know what that command means. So
Right.
like once they really get over that, it's like they just really chill out, which is really nice.
Yeah, that's really the only command that we allow, in quotes, our clients to repeat over and over
again
to their dog. So everything else, our philosophy is you tell them once, and then you go in and enforce it with a leash correction or whatever, verbal correction or whatever. But with go lay down, it's really, for me, it's kind of a naggy. You want to nag your dog until they go, oh, fine.
You're so annoying.
And then they go lay down. And then they start to learn that she's just going to keep saying this to me until I go do it. So I might as well do it from the beginning. And our dogs are really, really good at it.
Yeah. Well, we teach them at a super young age.
Yeah. And, I don't even really teach them. We just do it. I did not teach Tula go lay down.
She just looked at everyone else and was
observed.
like, oh.
Yeah, she really learned from watching the other dogs. And I think the first time she did it, she was, I don't know, maybe about 3.5 months old.
Yeah.
And I told her to go lay down. I think she was walking around while we get dinner or something. And I told her to go lay down, and she went and laid down. And I was like, wow, that always amazes me.
Yep.
When they learn through observation. And I basically haven't taught any formal commands to Tula, but yet she knows them all.
Yep.
Because, she observes.
And we got to keep in mind that Tula is a different bloodline. So therefore, I feel like she naturally really has that ability to just kind of turn off compared to like Twiggy when she was her age. So that also plays into factors as well.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, it's just as important for Tula to learn that as a high drive dog or a high energy dog.
True. Yeah.
It's still quality of life. Every dog should learn to self-regulate, and that's the best way to teach them a good off switch. You will see that when you're looking for high drive breeds. If you're looking for a breeder, a lot of times you will see them describe the dam and sire of this particular litter as having good off switches. And it's important because you can get like a cattle dog or a border collie or a Malinois or whatever whose bloodlines have not been cultivated for that off switch, and it's much, much harder to get a dog to self-regulate. A lot of this is hard wiring and, cultivated bloodlines. For us with Aussies, because we breed Aussies for the average family, like we breed family dogs. We don't really breed performance dogs. You can use our dogs for performance, absolutely. But really we breed dogs for the average family. So good off switches is something we're always looking for, as far as cultivating it in personality in our bloodlines. Super
and
important.
Then even if I think Twiggy has a good off switch now, but in the beginning it was definitely a bit tricky because she just wants to be on all the time. So then we'll find a male that has a good off switch and breed her with the male. And then we advertise her as being more of a high drive dog. But I think it's really important when you are breeding dogs to make sure that you have both parents correlate with one another. Exactly. Depending on what you're looking for. So
right. And let's be honest, there's just not a lot of people out there who are looking for high drive Aussies.
No.
There just isn't.
No.
So it would be, in my opinion, irresponsible to breed them that way, because then you are putting a high drive dog in a family situation where somebody's working full time or has, a couple of kids or just isn't, capable, of dealing with a high drive dog. So to me, it's kind of unethical to do that.
I mean, I feel
unless you have this, deep pool of, potential if you are in the performance world and you're breeding, certain litters specifically to sell them to other people in performance sports, that's a whole other thing.
Well, and then we also have to talk about, like working too, right? So like,
sure.
I think a lot of times we get our dogs from the middle.
The middle of the country?
The middle of the country.
The Midwest.
The Midwest. I was about to say the Middle East, which is definitely not brain malfunctioning. But yeah, and so I think whenever we're buying like new females, for the most part, we're always looking like in the description, do they have like a good off switch?
Right, because working dogs by and large do not have great off switches because they need so much drive to do their jobs. So yeah, that's, we're kind of going a little bit off topic, but yes, a good off switch is super important for quality of life for everybody involved. Fortunately, it can be taught.
Yeah.
So, and that is definitely part of our program and should definitely be part of any obedience program you're doing with your dog, old or young.
Yep.
Okay, so the second one, again, in no particular order, the ability to be left alone.
Yeah, this is a frequent one we see with our clients as well. It's anxiety, being left alone.
A lot of people talk about separation anxiety and then will tell us, well, she was a COVID puppy. Okay, well, they still should have been left alone. Even in COVID, you still could have left your dog alone in another room with the door closed.
We had 2 puppies during COVID.
Right, that's true. That's true. I always forget that.
And the number one rule is they're puppies, so we have to see them as like children, like babies, and babies need nap time. So we would put them in separate rooms during nap time, and they would have 3 hours with the door shut with nobody in there, because they're babies and babies need nap time. And they, even though they're all over the place and they're acting up, usually because they need a nap.
So this is really a 2-prong issue for people because either we hear the dog is super attached to the other dog or dogs in the house, right? Never been without them, freaks out. So all the dogs have to go to the vet when just one dog has a vet visit because they're so ridiculously bonded, unhealthily bonded. And then of course the other prong is a dog who can't be without the people in their lives, right? Can't be left home alone without having tremendous anxiety or being destructive. Being left alone and being comfortable being left alone is a really important skill. Seems obvious. I think the dog to dog over bonding, I think people find that very alluring because they're like, oh my God, they're so bonded.
Like they love each other,
And I, whenever someone says that to me, I think to myself, well, what is going to happen when something happens to one of the dogs?
Yep.
So it's really all of these quality of life things we're talking about today. It's really about being fair to the dog because they don't understand what can happen in the world, but we do. We know that stuff happens. You have 2 super bonded dogs, and even if they're the same age, right? You don't have to worry about like one dying, right? One blows their knee out and needs to go get knee surgery and is gone for 2 days.
I think and then if they are the same age and they're super bonded, I mean, this is kind of off topic, but litter mate syndrome is a real thing.
Yes, that's a little off topic. Though.
It's kind of off topic, but so then I don't. There should be separation. They should be raised differently. There should be one dog. I think of Ruby and Twiggy, right? Ruby can't go on over 30-minute walks. She just can't do it anymore. She's 13. She can't do it. Twiggy can go biking with me and run for 5 to 7 miles and still come home and still want to play. I have different activities for them. I have different, this is off topic too because we're talking about separation, but.
Yeah,
my point
I get what you mean. You can still find activities for each of them. So even if the dogs are the same age, like to get back to that, and you have one that has a health emergency and has to go stay at the vet for 2 days or even just overnight, and then they come home and they have to be calm in another room because they've
Yeah.
had surgery. And now you've got the other dog who's completely losing their minds. I'm going to go out on a limb here, Jacob, and assume that it's a freaking nightmare when one dog has a vet appointment and the family shows up with both dogs because they can't be separated.
Yeah, sometimes it's more than just one other dog too.
It's a nightmare.
Very fun.
And again, it is what it is at that point, right? They've already made the situation, so I understand their impulse doing that. But we're here to tell you that this being able to be alone from their canine family,
Yep.
and being alone from their human family and being comfortable is such an important thing to teach your dog. It's really unethical to not teach them to be comfortable alone because they will inevitably be alone.
Yep. And their natural instinct is to not be alone because your pack members don't leave each other. When you're in a pack, you don't ever leave each other. So it has to be a taught skill. You have to teach them how to do it. Most dogs have a hard time doing that if you don't, make space for them when they're younger. Understand that, like, okay, this dog's too young to be going on, a 5-mile hike with the older dog. So we're going to leave the puppy home while we go on the hike. They're allowed to have like individuality.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what people kind of get skewed. They're like, oh, well, this dog's anxious, therefore I'm going to get another dog because I'm going to help this dog's with his anxiety. When in reality, like, it's actually like inflaming the situation even worse than it was before.
It can make it worse, for sure.
So,
I mean, even though we have 9 dogs here, Tula is alone in the crate every day for periods of time because at this age, she's 5 months. I have a crate in the bedroom and then there's a crate in the living room. But when we leave the house, the majority of the dogs are downstairs in a variety of states, right? Some of them are in crates, some of them are out wandering around, but downstairs in our lower level. And Ruby and Twiggy are in your room with the door closed. So Tula is in the living room in a crate
alone
by herself.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so, I do feel bad about, like, I acknowledge that I feel a little bad for her when we all just go goodbye, but she's so comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. She's so desensitized to that. It's not a big deal for her, and she's very comfortable to the point where sometimes I come home and I let all the dogs upstairs and they're milling around the living room and kitchen and whatever, getting a drink or something. I've been home for 15 minutes and I go, oh crap, I forgot to let you out of the crate. I'm sorry, babe. Because she literally makes no noise in there because she's used to being in and out of that crate, being alone, being in the crate with, everybody in the room, being in the crate with nobody in the room. So even though we work from home, we make sure that she has alone time and that she's super comfortable with alone time. I love the fact that she's super bonded to Journey. I find that so endearing. But they don't depend on each other to exist. No. They love each other, but they don't need each other to feel comfortable. And that's super important for both of them.
I don't think we have any of our dogs like need one another. Like we can take
Definitely
them.
not.
No, we can take them individually to the vet. No problem. Like no one's going to have a heart attack. I think the only thing they get annoyed, well, it's Remy she doesn't like to be downstairs. Like she wants to just mill around upstairs. But I feel like that's
they definitely have their
age.
Preferences of where they want to be when we leave the house.
Yeah.
And sometimes we allow them to make those decisions.
And sometimes we don't.
Sometimes it's not non-negotiable. Yeah. Like Deacon and Vivi have to be crated.
Yep.
Because they have a history of starting with the other dogs, and it's a safety issue
well,
for themselves and for the other dogs. So they're always crated. There's no negotiation there, and they hop right in their crates. They're super good in there, and that's another topic.
Yeah. Do you want to start talking about that? I have a good story about that.
Yes. So let's see. We talked about Great Aughswitch, and we talked about the ability to be alone, right? And we can segue right into how important it is to have a properly crate broken dog.
Yeah.
A super well crate trained dog. And this is for every dog.
Every dog.
Every dog. Unless there's some sort of very rare medical condition that would prevent you from crating your dog. And I fail to think of any off the top of my head. That's how rare it should be. Every dog should be comfortable in a crate. I'm sorry. I just feel extremely strong about that.
That's like, first of all, I don't know how you can raise a puppy without having a crate.
I don't know how people do it.
Like, I really, really don't know how people do it. Because, you're babysitting 24/7. So then if, you're not watching your puppy for 2 seconds, what if they chew something? What if they eat something? What if they use the bathroom? So now their housebreaking is taking longer. You're babysitting them all the time. I don't know how you're sleeping at night, wondering where they're going, where they're wandering off to, where they're getting into, the cat food, or, my brain goes on a whole anxiety thing but if they're in their crate, it's my time for downtime. So
Yes.
I can't imagine not ever teaching my dog how to crate train. And that's on me. Might as well, let's talk about how it's healthy for the dog. I think we have to keep in mind they're animals. They're dogs, they're animals. And what do wolves or canines in general like to do? They like to burrow. They like very small enclosed spaces. It makes them feel comfortable, right? And so that's what a crate is. It's a small enclosed space that makes them feel comfortable in.
Oh, but people are now yelling into their speaker in their car driving to work going, not my dog. My dog freaks out when they're in a crate. And I would contend that that's because they were introduced to the crate in the wrong way.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's people who get rescue dogs who are older, who, maybe have some background being crated for very long periods of time.
Yep.
You hear that a lot.
Yep.
Oh, they went to this house, took this dog who was being crated, who'd been stuck in a crate for 3 days or whatever. Again, those situations are usually really rare. The problem with introducing a crate correctly is that when you put your dog in, they're going to naturally cry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a normal response when they first start crating.
It's like putting a baby in a crib.
Right.
They're going to naturally cry.
Right. And so we never recommend that you just pack up and leave and let your puppy scream it out, right? That is introducing it wrong. But we talked about this when we first got Tula.
Yep.
We were the first day she was home, we worked on the crate training and she did cry in the crate. And we sat in the same room with her. I continued to work on the computer and once in a while, turned to her and said, "You're fine. I'm right here." So we were still stayed in the room, but we did let her cry it out.
Yep. And just reassured her that you're fine.
Just reassured her.
We're not leaving. You're fine. And then as soon as she settled, we let her out.
Right. So again, the timing, we talk about reinforcement all the time. It's the lifeblood of your relationship with your dog is proper reinforcement and making sure that you're not reinforcing that hysterical behavior. And that's what people do. The dog freaks out, the puppy freaks out, and they go, "Oh, something must be wrong." And they run over and they let the dog out of the crate. And then the dog says, "Aha.
Now
I know how to get out of the crate. Apparently, this is how I do it."
Yep. And then, this time I left him in longer and he cried even more than he did the last time. And I let him out. Now the bar is higher.
Right.
And then the bar is higher than that when you keep going it. So you're making it even more, it's like an uphill battle.
Right.
But if
so
you
that's
just
an
hung in
extinction
there.
burst, right? We talked about the extinction burst. So, but let's talk about, really why crate training is so important. Aside from housebreaking, when you have a puppy and keeping them, the ethics of keeping them safe from themselves,
Yep.
right? And also really setting them up for success so you're not resentful. Like you were like, "Oh, well, I'd be so exhausted if I couldn't crate my puppy." You're on all the time. To me, that's got to make people more frustrated, quicker to be harsh with a puppy when they're frustrated and tired and sick of having to watch this
And you
dog.
just worked all day and you come home to this puppy who's all over the place and chewed up your whole couch and chewed up your brand new lamp. I would be so frustrated. And then on top of it, not being able to have a place to chill out, for you to chill out, for them to chill out. I don't know.
Right. So it's a mental health. We want the owners to feel, really good mentally, right? Because an owner that feels really calm and happy with their pet is going to be kinder to them,
Yep.
right? Is going to be less likely to lose their temper. And let's face it, we're all human.
Yep.
And we all lose our temper.
Yep. And guess what? We all feel bad about
And
putting
we
a
all
puppy
feel
in a crate.
horrible. Well, we feel horrible about losing our tempers with this poor puppy, right? But we were just so frustrated.
Yeah.
So, aside from all of that, let's talk about, some people might be saying, "Well, my dog's an adult. I don't know why I would need to crate train them now." Talk about a variety of things. What if your dog, again, let's go back to an injury. Your dog has to get some sort of surgery and they have to be confined for a period of time, or even just going to the vet when they're going for surgery, they've got to be in a cage
Yep.
at the vet. Do you find that, do dogs freak out in cages at the vet?
Yeah, I especially if they have to stay over, a long period of time. Some dogs do great, other dogs don't. It's just depending on.
So I would suspect the dogs that do great are probably crate trained. That would just be a guess. Now, maybe that's not a one-to-one correlation because you are talking about a stressful environment. Maybe a dog that's in pain or feeling sick or whatever.
Or it's they're in the crate like shut down because they're in a strange place and it's uncomfortable.
So, I mean, it's probably not one-to-one, but my guess is that a dog who is properly crate trained, very comfortable in a crate, is going to be better at the vet when they are ill or injured in a cage. They have to, even if they're just going to be spayed or neutered,
Yeah.
they've got to spend time in that cage. And if you never teach them to be comfortable in that environment, it just, to me, I keep going back to the ethics of it. It's just unfair to then ask them to go in a situation that's high stress and add to it by not doing the groundwork to make them comfortable in a crate or a cage, right? Suppose there's a flood
Yeah.
and you have to go to a shelter. You see this in the Midwest all the time, these floods or tornadoes where people lose their homes for a temporary period of time or sometimes permanently, and they have to go to a shelter. And now the movement in the last 30 years has been, you probably don't know this, but years ago, 20, 25 years ago, when there was a major, natural disaster, people weren't allowed to bring their pets to the shelters. And so people would then not leave their homes when they were warned to leave their homes because there was some hurricane coming or a flood coming or whatever. People wouldn't leave their homes because they were like, I'm not going to the shelter without my dogs and cats.
Yeah, I don't blame them.
So, I don't know if it's the ASPCA or FEMA or whatever has worked very hard to have shelters that are pet friendly. But there's one caveat. Can you guess what it is?
They have to be good in the crate.
They have to be crated when they're in there because obviously you can't be in a shelter, loaded with people who are highly stressed with dogs running around loose.
Yep.
So they have to be crated. So, and like the ASPCA and Humane Society will come in and provide these crates for these shelters. And I always think, oh God, what about the people who have dogs who've never been in a crate?
Yep.
It's a horrible, again, ethics. It's a horrible experience to go through. And then to not train your dog to be in a crate in a situation like that. So it's a little less stressful for them. I just feel super strongly about that.
Well, that and we could talk about what was I thinking? Just had it on the tip of my tongue. Oh, grooming. Your dog needs to get groomed, and they have to go in the crate to get groomed.
Yeah, so that can actually segue us into grooming for sure.
I kind of want to go back to crate training real fast because this doesn't have to do with grooming. But I think of when I took Ruby to my ex's grandparents' house, and we had her, I brought a crate for her because I wanted her to feel comfortable because she was in a strange place with strange people. And then we ended up going to her sister's house to go set off some fireworks or something like that. And so I left Ruby with her grandparents, and I told them, when you guys go to bed, if you could just put her in the crate, that would be great for me. And I came back home and they felt bad about putting her in the crate.
So they didn't.
And they didn't. And she was walking around the house, drool coming out of her mouth. Her eyes were like bloodshot, and she was just pacing around the house. And I felt so guilty. I should have just either
Put her in the crate before you left.
I should have put her in the crate before I left, or I should have brought her, because she's not bad with fireworks, and had her in Peggy's house in a crate in the garage or whatever. Because Peggy, I didn't think she wanted to have the dogs in the house. But I could have probably put her in the garage and she would have been fine.
In a crate. Right.
In a crate. So it's really important, like if you're traveling, to have them in a crate. If you're, going from, like if you're traveling to like a different state, like let's say you would travel to Florida, being able to have them in a crate
In the hotel.
in the hotel, or in the car, or going in an airplane. Like I could think of like 1,000 different situations where they need to be in a crate and they need to be able to feel comfortable in the crate. Yeah, and so we can segue into grooming, because that is a necessary crate that they have to be in.
That's a perfect story
So.
where, you knew what Ruby needed and what would make her feel comfortable. And then the grandparents were like, well, I feel bad putting her in a cage. She seemed fine. She didn't need to go in the cage. No, it's not about need.
Yeah.
It's about what I know my dog would feel comfortable doing. And, you know, when you bring your crate to a new place, the crate is familiar.
Yeah, it's familiar. It's comfortable. They don't have to make decisions. I think that's the biggest thing. Like even when we brought Gianna's dog Evie to the Hamptons, I was like, bring her crate because that's going to be a familiar space for her. And plus, it wasn't her house, so she wasn't going to tear up anything. Or, you know, we knew that she was safe if we were leaving for a long period of time. And even when she wasn't in the crate, she electively would go in the crate when she was uncomfortable because it's a safe space.
Safe and familiar, for sure. Yep. Crate training, super important. And any dog of any age can learn it.
Yep.
And I just think it's you know, it's like a prerequisite that all dogs should know.
Yeah. It's like, you know, we talk about dog training as, you know, there's like levels. And it's, to me, that's like a preschool skill. They like need to know.
Agree. So we can segue now into grooming because you also talked about dogs who go to a grooming shop are in cages, in crates, while they're being dried or waiting for their turn to get their hair cut or whatever. Again, another incident where dogs need to be comfortable in crates. Dogs also need to be comfortable being groomed.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if your dog sheds and doesn't ever get a haircut or ever go to a grooming shop in their life. And that's probably most dogs, to be honest. Or if your dog is a poodle or a Bichon who needs a tremendous amount of grooming for their lifetime. All dogs need to have some basic skills around being groomed.
Because I think it's more of not even just being groomed, it's being touched everywhere. Because, you know, your dog could have an injury or, you know, I always think like with short-haired dogs, if they get like allergies and stuff and you have to like put lotion on them or, you know, there's like hair missing or whatever, like you're going to have to touch them. And if they're not used to being touched in certain ways, they're like, it's a very stressful thing for them. You know?
Unnecessarily.
An unnecessary stressful thing.
Ethics.
Yeah.
What we need to do to help our dogs be comfortable in the human world. All dogs will need to be groomed.
Or get their nails trimmed.
Oh, well, we can do nail trimming in a second. That's like a whole topic in and of itself, I think. But all puppies don't like to be brushed initially. Nope. They don't. And my guess is, not ever having been a puppy, but I can guess that they have sensitive skin and they're easily overstimulated, right? Being touched overstimulates them so easily. So it's a sensory thing for a puppy. And they don't like being brushed. And they all need to learn to be comfortable with it. I think probably a lot of our audience is going, ooh, my dog hates being brushed. I never did it. You know, it's not something that people really think about. Like that's part of, like you say, preschool sort of learning, right? But it can be introduced slowly. And as they age through it, they suddenly feel like, oh, this is great.
They love it because, well, our dogs love it anyways because it's one-on-one time. It feels good. And then those mats that you didn't see before, they're out of my ear and now I can move my ears around or I can move my tail around and it feels better. But essentially, it's like a spa day for them. So why wouldn't you want to give your dog a spa day?
Yeah, and you know, I'm sure they're like all other mammals, right? Literally grooming.
Yeah.
Like chimps grooming each other is like releases endorphins or whatever. Yeah, so that's how I view it with our dogs. And because they're shedding dogs, we don't get a lot of mats. We do occasionally, but not a lot. They need to be brushed because it just keeps my house cleaner and makes them look nicer. And it takes a little while for each of them to get used to it. Like Tula hated it in the beginning.
I can't name any of our dogs that were like young and super cool with grooming. Like they all had to adjust to it. And now they all love it. Like, I mean, like Deacon was terrible. Deacon was terrible about a bath, terrible about getting brushed, terrible with his nails. And we're like, this is a non-negotiable. So it was like a year until he was cool with it. And now he loves it. Now he's like, do my nails.
He's a funny guy that way. I mean, it took him a while to get used to the baths. He used to get a lot of them, not so much baths, but rinsed off because we used to run them through the woods.
Yeah, and you would get all muddy.
Yeah. And he used to hate getting in the tub and getting rinsed off. Tula does not love a bath yet, but she's really coming around to being groomed. So she'll get up on the table. she'll stand nice and quietly for me as I brush her, and it's really just performative at this point
Yeah,
because
she has no coat.
she's not shedding
No.
at this point. She's too young to be even shedding. But getting her used to being up on the table, which most people wouldn't do. You could just sit on the floor and
Yeah.
brush your dog. But you make it a fun experience for them. I think what happens with a lot of times is that dogs, especially puppies, will naturally mouth you when you first start grooming them, and people get freaked out about that.
And they have those really sharp teeth.
Yes.
You know, so that's their immediate reaction. But if you don't brush them at a young age, then they start learning that mouthing behavior with adult teeth, and then it can turn into a problem. So you kind of want them to mouth you so you could be like, no, you can't do that. Try again.
Right.
You know?
And really, all you got to do is just stop what you're doing for a second as they're mouthing you, but not move.
Yeah.
That's all I do.
Yep.
And then they take their mouth off, and you go, "Thank you," and you keep doing what you're doing. And once they figure out that you're going to continue on with this grooming, whether they mouth you or not, they very quickly move through that.
Yep.
Certainly having treats and making it really rewarding and fun and short is super important. We're not recommending that people restrain their dogs and make it unpleasant and say, "You must do this," that kind of thing.
No, it should be fun.
It should be short and fun and pleasant, as pleasant as can be, but also there are some non-negotiables like, no, you're not getting down until I'm ready to let you down.
Yep.
And they really do come around fairly quickly. And for our dogs in particular, they really learn to love it because, like you say, it's one-on-one time where all the other dogs are down on the ground and they're up on the grooming table and getting my individual attention. They love that.
Well, and even like doing their, we don't really do a lot of like scissoring, doing their butts or anything like that, but they're so used to it because we brush them all the time. So then when I do have to like trim them up and stuff, they're so good because it's just like a learned skill that they know that they're supposed to stay still for this period of time. Kind of going off of this, I feel like this is also another skill we always teach a lot to our clients, especially like if they have young puppies who are going to be big and hairy, like we have the Pyrenees puppy right now. And I immediately started brushing her because I know that, first of all, they have those extra dew claws, so they're going to have to get their nails trimmed, and it's going to be annoying for the groomers to have to have this dog who doesn't like their nails trimmed, and they have
Extra nails.
Yeah,
Right.
6 extra nails. And
Like
Pyrenees,
we need extra ones.
I know. And Pyrenees tend to not want their feet touched. It's just, what I've noticed working with the breed over time, working in a grooming salon. It's always the Pyrenees or the Pyrenees mixes that don't want their feet touched. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, you have so many nails and I can easily quick you. So like, you need to chill out. So I've been working a lot on that with her, and then a lot of brushing her coat. Even though she has fur, that Pyrenees coat gets matted so fast. You don't want to introduce it when they get matted and then they have a horrible experience because you're brushing out mats. You want to introduce it when they have that puppy coat and nothing gets matted, and you're just brushing them out and they're like, oh, this is a fun game, And it took like 3 days, and then she was like, oh, this is when I bring out the brush. And she's like, oh, this is when I lay on the ground and you brush me.
Right. When I lay on the ground like a princess.
Yeah. And you brush me and you give me, and you hand feed me cookies. Oh, it's so simple. Such
and even
an
though
easy
she
technique.
won't need haircuts, she will need to be brushed and bathed. Now, they might choose to do that at home for her whole life, but she's still going to need it. If she becomes unruly and you send her to a grooming shop, again, ethically, you have set this dog up for failure and trauma. Because now they're in a grooming shop, and to be fair to groomers, they got a job to do. They can't be spending 6 hours on your dog because your dog's a nightmare.
And now it's like traumatic. So now you're having this negative association with bringing them to the groomer, having to muzzle them, having to do all this stuff.
It's awful.
Just because they don't like being brushed, and you could have just prevented it in the first place,
For sure.
Or made it pleasant,
And then when you have a grooming dog, the ethics
Even
is
higher.
even more important, right? Because that dog's going to have to be at a grooming shop on a regular basis for their entire life.
And now you're going to have to bring them to the vet and sedate them and fully shave them. And then they kind of look all funny. So then you don't bring them to the, so it's like it all feeds into one another. As if you just did this from the beginning, then you would have whatever haircut you wanted. You could brush them out whenever you wanted. You don't have to go to the grooming salon as much because you're frequently brushing them. It's pleasant,
Your groomer loves your dog.
Your groomer loves your dog and like gives you discounts and stuff. It's just
it's just a cycle, a good cycle then, right? They like going to the grooming shop. They get treated well there because they're easy to handle, and it's just a win-win for everyone. And it's so important that you set your dog up to be comfortable with something that they're going to have done to them regularly
of their
for their
life.
whole life.
Yep.
It's just so sad when these dogs come in and they're really nasty and they have to be muzzled and restrained, because we all know that that just makes the whole situation worse, right? We know that that's what's happening. But on the other hand, we've got a job to do, and the groomer should not be put in jeopardy of being injured by your dog. It's not fair.
Yeah, I mean,
no one gets paid enough to be bitten by your dog.
No, I mean, and you know, I worked at a grooming salon, and you know, those dogs would immediately get sent home because it's like we don't have insurance to be able to cover a bite.
Even we can have insurance. No one wants to be
no one
bitten.
wants to be
and then
bit.
they've got to be sedated, and then it's a whole
And then
other
I always
spiraling.
felt bad for the dogs that we had to send home who were really badly matted, but like were, you know, aggressively biting us. And I'm like, who's gonna groom this dog now?
Right.
Like now this dog is covered in shit and piss. It's all matted in them, and like it's the whole point of grooming is you want to help dogs. Like you want to make dogs pretty, you want to help dogs, and then to be able to be like, I'm sorry, we can't take your dog because you've never done anything. They're fully matted. There's shit caked on their ass, and we can't do anything about it because they're trying to aggressively bite us. It's just like, it always is like so
shame.
depleting.
And it just can be prevented. It's just a shame. And then, of course, the other part of grooming is nail trims.
Nail trims.
Nail trims
big
are
one.
challenging for most owners. They really are. First of all, people get freaked out when they quick them. So quick them means if you cut them slightly too short, they'll bleed. And sometimes the bleeding goes on for a long time. It's never a lot of blood, but it freaks people
feels
out.
like a lot of blood.
Yeah.
And it gets everywhere, and you're like, oh.
And you think it's stopped, and then the dog moves and it's bleeding again.
Restarts again,
Virtually everybody who's ever cut a dog's nails
Has quick
nails. I mean, it just happens. It's not, you know, I'm sure it's painful for the dogs. I'm sure it's a pinch. It hurts initially, but then it doesn't hurt them. It's just annoying because it's very hard to get the blood stopped. And you know, no one wants to do that to their dog. So people then choose to just ignore the nails, or they don't realize that nails need to be trimmed. Most dogs don't walk on city streets and wear them down. Ty has only recently he never needed his nail trims his entire life because he's a nail walker. And so he wears them down naturally. But now that he's getting older and he doesn't exercise as much due to his age, I've actually had to cut his nails in the last year.
Even then, when he didn't need his nails done, we made it a point to touch his feet and to pretend to do his nails.
For sure.
So
every time.
Even when he didn't need his nails done. And I think the problem is like most puppies wear their nails down really fast because they're running around and they're active and stuff. And then when they reach like 1 to 2 and all of a sudden like you need to cut their nails because now they're jumping on people and scratching people and it's like the worst traumatic experience ever. So it's super duper important.
You also have to talk about breed for that, because if you have like a pointer, they have the cat feet, where they don't actually, when they're sitting on their paws, their standard is that their nails don't touch the ground as they're sitting, you know, as they have their feet on the ground. Some people will be like, what are you talking about? You know, like an Aussie, if they stand on their feet, their nails will generally touch the floor. But a German Shorthair, for instance, the nails will hover. And so those nails grow really fast because they're not getting worn down. So that's even more important. And, you know, for a short-haired dog, you're going to notice it sooner. The problem is when you don't desensitize your puppy and keep up with the nail trims, again, they've got to go to the vet. I saw a very interesting TikTok a few weeks ago of a vet talking about how her practice stopped doing nail trims. And I was like, okay, why? And she was like, you know, of course, the nail trims that most vets get are the worst
of
cases,
the worst,
right?
yeah.
Because the groomer couldn't get them done. The groomer's saying, take them to the vet. I'm not doing them. And this vet was like, listen, the dogs that come in just to get their nails done, they're the worst of the worst as far as behavior around that particular, process. So they hate us. They hate the vet. They hate the actual building. They're highly stressed.
And they also make the other dogs in the facility stressed because they're stressed out.
They're putting the staff at risk because the dog is so highly stressed. They're much more prone to biting. You've got to get the muzzle on them if you're going to muzzle them. Then you've got to restrain. It's just a spiral of awfulness for everyone involved. And so this vet was like, you know, for $25
For real.
it doesn't make any sense for me to do it. So she made kind of this controversial decision to just not offer nail trims anymore. And she said the stress in the clinic went down, and the staff was really supportive of that decision, because it's a hard thing to, you never, I don't know, Jacob, maybe you can speak to this. How many dogs that come for nail trims are good for them? I would imagine most of them who come to get nail trims are terrible.
I'd say it's like 30-70% are like 70% are good, but those are like recurring clients.
So those the 70% are people that like don't want to do it themselves, so they just bring them to the vet.
Yeah, but the 30% that don't are terrible.
Yeah,
They're
really
like,
bad.
Yeah, you need muzzled, and they really need to be like
pre-sedated
down,
with medicine before they even come in. And well, I'm glad to hear that 70% are actually pretty decent. I always think that every dog that goes to the vet is horrible, but I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I mean, it's again, no dog loves to have their nails trimmed, so it is something that you need to desensitize, and you can desensitize an older dog with freaking cookies, with high value treats, just literally desensitizing, touching their feet, manipulating their toes, taking the trimmer, treat, clip a nail, treat. I mean, it's...
So you associate the sound with a cookie.
Yeah, I mean...
It's kind of like clicker training, but except with the...
For sure.
That's also one of the things that I always work on with our clients too.
The nail trims.
The nail trims, because I feel like it's very, very important for them to be comfortable doing that. So if I can do that when they're here for the 3 weeks of board and train, so it's a little bit easier for the owner, like it's just such a... I'll do the rough part as long as you guys can keep up with it, because it's such an easy thing to do, and it's such an important skill.
Yeah, absolutely. So nail trims and grooming, dogs should be familiar and good with those, with that whole procedure. Super important.
And we can also like kind of lay over, because I think you had being good in the car, right? That was one of them. If you have a negative experience with grooming, if you have a negative experience with going to the vet, and then those are the only places that you take your dog in the car, you're probably going to have a negative experience with them in the car as well.
Okay, so that's a segue into proper behavior in the car. Some people love to take their dogs in the car, and they're in the car all the time.
Yeah.
I would say there's probably a lot of clients, or a lot of listeners who just love to take their dogs in the car. I have a good behavior in a car as one of these, 6 quality of life skills, because obviously they have to go in a car. But sometimes what we see is people who have puppies who are car sick.
Yeah.
They give up. Yeah. They go, oh, well, he hates the car. He throws up. We give him whatever. What's the
anti-nausea, isn't it?
What's the expensive stuff? The anti-nausea. Serenia, which is really expensive.
It's really expensive.
Really expensive. And they wring their hands about the dog, having car sickness. And I'm here to tell you that most puppies will grow out of car sickness if you just keep exposing them. Journey had a 30-minute I think she had like a 44-minute window, because it took 45 minutes to get to work. And I used to bring her with me when she was a puppy. And I would literally pull into the parking lot and she would throw up. It was like, oh my gosh, she just needed 5 more minutes in that window. But, that was all when she was under a year. And I just kept exposing her. It's not like they're sick for the rest of the day. They get over it, and then their body adjusts. So I worry when people say, well, they get car sick, so we don't ever take him in the car. And like you say, I only take him when he goes to the groomer or goes to the vet.
And then that starts adding on behavioral problems of, I don't feel good in the car, and the only time we go in the car is when I have to do this really anxious thing with my owner, and therefore now I'm gonna be reactive in the car. Now I'm gonna like pull on the leash to not get in the car. I'm not gonna jump in the car. It creates all these other behavioral issues.
And I'm gonna whine, and I'm gonna bark, and I'm gonna be destructive in the car.
Yeah, I'm gonna chew the seat belts, and
because they're feeling anxious. Having good car skills is super important for every dog, because every dog will have to be in a car at some point.
Yep.
And it's just something that people really should work on and commit to. On that note, it's important also that people teach their dogs to jump into a car.
Oh, this is
I would say a good 50% of the clients that come to us, the dogs, the big dogs,
yeah.
don't know how to jump
Always
in a car.
the big dogs. It's always the big dogs.
It
And I'm like,
blows my mind.
I'm not lifting this 150-pound dog into the car because you guys didn't teach him.
Oh, he was afraid. He didn't know how to. Girl, teach your dog to jump in a car. It's even more important when they're a big breed.
Yeah.
Like Nona, she can't be lifting that goddamn lab up in the car.
Yeah.
That she should learn to get in the car.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me. And particularly with the giants,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have a lot of proprioception, right? They don't really have a good idea of where their front and back legs are. They're not particularly coordinated. They weren't bred for coordination.
No.
And they literally don't know how to work their back legs vis-a-vis to climb into a car. Or they don't have literally the timing skills to go boom, 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 boom into a car, right? So we have this Pyrenees puppy here now, and she's going to be a big dog.
Yeah.
She's just a baby. She's 4 months old.
Yeah.
So it's understandable that she doesn't know how to jump into a car yet. She's learning. That's perfectly developed. It's a developmental thing, completely normal. So what she would do is put her front feet up and then try to climb up,
Yeah.
which is not a healthy way for them to get in a car.
No, and it's not good for, especially at her age, for her joints to
And
be
it's, you know what else
straining.
is not good for it? Your car bumper. Okay. I mean, they'll scratch the shit out of your car bumper. So what I've been working on is backing her up and then encouraging her to go boom, 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 boom.
Like a running start.
Right.
Yeah.
One stride and stride in. And then what she would do is she would get that and then she would hit her head on the top of the crate because we put them in the van in a crate. And that happened 2 times in a row. But the 3rd time she learned, okay, boom, 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 and duck my head. And now she can jump in the car. Like, is it her favorite thing?
No.
No, she would much rather you pick her up.
Yep.
But it's important that she learn that coordination to get in and out of a car in an appropriate
She's going to
way.
be 100 and something pounds for sure. So, you especially as they get older, as you get older, you're not going to be able to pick this 100 and something dog to get into the car.
Yeah, it's craziness. I mean, the TikTok where it's like what I thought I was getting,
And what I actually got.
what I actually, and as opposed to what I actually got. So the video is like a picture. It's like, say we're talking about Aussies. The picture is someone's Aussie doing like this amazing agility work. What I thought I was getting when I got my Aussie, and then they show a video of their dog who can't even get in a car, and I'm like, why are you shaming that dog?
That's not the dog's fault. That's your fault.
Why are you shaming the dog? That's totally on you, girl. That's not the dog's fault. Like, are you kidding me? This is an athletic breed.
Yeah,
They
no.
should be hopping in and out. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, literally, the mechanics of getting in and out of the car, that's a pet peeve of mine.
Oh, man.
It's super important that they're able to do that. That being said, if you have someone like Bubby, who is a 180-pound St. Bernard, you're going to use your common sense with that. She has a little harder time. She can't do the ba-boop, ba-boop. She's a big, heavy dog.
Yep.
So that is slightly different, but she does know how to assist.
She does get into the van though, no problem. I have no
because
problem
the van's
getting.
low. Yes.
And then they have like the back of their. I think it's like I don't know. It's like a car. It's like, and she can get in the back of that too.
Yeah, that's great.
I wouldn't expect Bubby to get in my truck.
Right. But she would know how to assist you.
Yeah,
she
would.
would know how to get her front
And then
end
as soon
in.
as you lift her butt, she lifts the rest of her body
Right,
up
because
for you.
she's been we worked on that when she was here for training, and the mom has certainly encouraged that
Yes.
in the meantime. So yeah, just that, it's a real pet peeve of mine. Every dog should be able to hop in and out of a car, barring some sort of physical disability. Come on,
Or they're
come
a little,
on, people.
Or they're a little tiny dog.
Oh,
I give the little dogs a little bit because at least you can pick a 20-pound dog up into the car.
20-pound dog should be able to hop into a car.
Okay, well I agree there, but my point is if it's 20 pounds and you don't want to teach them, it's not a big deal.
Right.
But a Newfoundland puppy
right.
needs to learn how to get in the car.
Absolutely, 100%. So, and then of course, like you said, it's important that you take them places that are happy and fun, so that they don't only associate the car with things like going to the vet,
Yep.
or going to the groomer, or whatever. It's also a safety issue for you when you're driving to not have a dog who is being a nut job in the back of your car,
screaming.
distracting you and possibly causing an accident.
Yep.
I love to see dogs in crates in cars. I think that is the best way to transport them.
And I think it's the safest
It's
for
the
them
safest
too.
for them,
Yeah.
for sure. You know, I do occasionally let my own dogs ride in the front seat if I just have one dog with me, my own personal dogs.
Yeah.
I don't love doing that. It's really a local thing. If I'm just running to pick up Chinese, 10 minutes down the road, I'll do it. But I have to say, I'm uncomfortable with her in the front seat because even if we get in a fender bender, I don't want to see her go flying.
She's gonna go right out the window.
I'm not entirely comfortable with that. But I know that's a long held tradition of dogs riding in the front seat. As long as they're behaving in any part of your car, if that's what you choose to do, I'm good with that. But ideally, you know, whenever we travel with our training dogs, everyone's always individually created for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, well, and they're not our dogs, so if something happens, I would feel so guilty. You know, they're just in the crate. They're in the crate. That's what it is. The only one that isn't in the crate is Bubby, and that's because she's huge.
Right.
And
so we actually have to take the two crates out, and she has to be in that open space because she's so enormous.
But even then, she's confined, and she's not going to fly out of the car.
Yes.
So, you know.
Yeah, so good car manners, again, ethically, you need to teach your dog this stuff so that they can have a happy, good quality of life because in and out of the car is going to be part of it, for sure.
Yep.
So I think that's 5 things.
I think, the last one was the vet.
Yeah,
Being good at the vet.
Yeah, we can segue into.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the vet already, so we can kind of like briefly, like you want to talk about what you do with Journey because she's not.
Yeah, so working on proper behavior at the vet is super important, and it's probably out of all of these things the most challenging.
Yeah. And the most important thing because they're going to have to go to the vet their entire life.
Yes, but it's understandable that a dog walks into a vet's office and is highly stressed because there's all highly stressed sense all around.
Yeah.
You know, there's anal glands from the dog who was just there. And, you know, it's a highly stressed environment because many dogs that go in there are in pain or, you know, are sick.
Or have been put down.
Right. Well,
so it smells like death in there too. At the vet, for me, even me walking into the vet just feels stressful.
Yeah, I mean it's understandable that, I mean, I wouldn't expect if one of our dogs just walked in the vet like it was no big deal. I'd wonder if there was something wrong with one of our dogs. Like I expect our dogs to be sort of a little stressed, a little sort of looking around, a little unsure, want to be with me. That's all normal.
And I'm okay with
that. And if they don't do that, I wonder about their intelligence, to be honest. If they're walking in there like a big dope, like they're in their living room, I'm thinking, this golden is such a dope.
Well, people need their goldens. People need a dog like that.
This bulldog, what a dope.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think for the typical dog, of course, they're going to be, you know, more stressed at the vet than they're going to be when they're home in their own environment. Yeah. So it's even more important that we try to make the experience as calm as possible. It breaks my heart to hear stories of people, you know, muzzling their dogs and dragging them in, and the dog is flailing about and needs to be restrained by 3 people in order to get an annual vaccine. It's insane.
Mine is having to like overly medicate them, put the muzzle on before, have like 5 people bring him. It's the medication for me. Like,
well, the medication makes it less. It makes it less cruel for them.
I feel like it makes it worse because now they feel like they're out of control because they aren't fully there.
Yeah, well, I think they do really fight.
The medicine, and then all of a sudden you're putting them in the car, and you know, it just feels so bad.
I would expect the average dog to be slightly uncomfortable when they're at the vet. That's completely normal. I think that it's the most challenging because it takes a lot of. First of all, it takes a dog who has some impulse control and some training under their belt, so you can communicate with them in a way that they understand, and sort of set boundaries and ground rules in a way they understand. The more you do, the more they understand, and the more, I want to say obedient, but that's not really the word I'm looking for. The
better relationship you have with your dog, the more comfortable they're going to be.
Because you can give them instructions that they understand, and they can find comfort in that.
Yes.
So you can talk about Twiggy. When we took her to the vet for artificial insemination, we had to wait in the waiting room at this new vet for like 30 minutes. And we waited with the stud who was
hyped up.
Yeah, I mean, he was the sweetest guy in the
yeah,
world. I
I
loved him.
Yeah.
And so, and Twiggy was, I don't know, 15, 20 feet away on the other side of the lobby waiting. And it was like 30 minutes of waiting. And it was, you know,
was
she's in
very
heat,
anxious.
she's infertile, and she's in a room with a stud who's, you know, raring to go.
And there's other dogs that were coming in and out, going to the vet, and it was with strange people in a new environment.
Yeah. So what did you do with her to make her feel better?
She kept asking for me to give her commands, so I just kept doing all my obedience with her, doing under, doing heel, doing like games like weave and all that stuff, and just like giving her things to do, giving her things to push her brain. So it was like a distraction for her being in an uncomfortable
It was something that she found familiar, and she found comfort in the familiarity and
like,
the structure.
tell me what to do. Please tell me what to do right now.
I don't know why I'm here, so give me something to do.
Yeah.
So that was a really interesting response from her. I'm not sure that any of our other dogs would have found comfort in that.
No.
But Twiggy's a high drive dog. You've done a lot of sort of work with her in that regard. So she found comfort in that. For Journey, who's sort of the opposite of Twiggy in
She's
many
like
ways.
the yin to Twiggy's yang. It's complete opposite.
And you know, Twiggy can be handled by vets and the
Yeah,
vet techs.
she
and
really
she's
has
a good
no
girl.
problem.
She might be stressed on the table, again within normal limits, but she's not going to bite people.
No.
She's a good girl.
Yeah.
Journey does not allow strangers to touch her at all, ever. So it was important that Journey and I came up with a routine at the vet that would help her feel comfortable, because again, it's a non-negotiable. You being examined is a non-negotiable. So we have to find a way that you can be physically examined by someone you don't know and still feel comfortable. So what I taught her was to rest her chin in my hands. And I always bring my treat bag whenever I'm doing the vet. I always have a treat bag with me. No matter what dog it is.
Yeah, no, I always have a treat
I'm
bag too.
treating them the whole time. If they'll take the treats, I'm treating them the whole time, because again, that helps condition them to, you know, this environment that they find stressful. So for Journey, what I ask is that none of the vet techs or the vets touch her, that I will put her on the table, and that they don't touch anywhere on her face or her ears. She rests her chin in my hand, and she just looks at me, and I talk to her and give her treats periodically. If they need to look in her ears, I will lift her ear leather.
I think you need to explain it a little bit differently. So once you have her on the table and her hands are her head is in your hands, they're allowed to examine and touch her. And do all
anywhere
that stuff.
from the ears down they can touch.
But they're not allowed to touch anywhere near her face.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So if they need to look in her ears, I'll lift her ear leather. If they need to look in her eyes, I will, let them look.
and
I
her
will
teeth and her mouth.
I will lift her lips so they can look at her teeth and stuff like that. And she is, out of our 9 dogs,
She's the best one at the vet.
she is so calm, and like she's a rock star at the vet.
And Deacon is too.
Yeah, Deacon used to be
And
nutty.
he used to be pretty nutty at the vet too. And then it's a very similar routine
he's
of
a
like,
good boy.
don't touch his face.
So, that was a routine that we created that has been really successful with her, and it allows her to go in and out of the vet in the least stressful way possible. We don't linger in the lobby. Generally we'll walk in, go into the room. It's a quick visit. We walk right out. And they have my credit card on file because I have 9 dogs. So I don't even stop at the desk. I'm right out the door and put her right in the car.
And they also have to be good on the vet because we breed them, so they're going to need to get x-rays and exams and side by side or whatever we decide to do with them. So, Journey needed to be good at the vet. And also, luckily, obviously not everyone can do this, but we have Jacob there. So a lot of the time Jacob does the exam and he sets up the room and all that stuff, which is like a huge help, which I know everyone can't do. But, it makes a huge difference.
And let's be real. The vets, they have a job to do. The vet techs, they have a job to do. They can't be, wasting their time trying to get your unruly dog to stand still or to get on the table. Or, they don't want to be cleaning up anal glands and poop everywhere. I know everybody wants to have a good dog at the vet. No one likes that. Everyone feels embarrassed and uncomfortable when their dog acts like a fool in public.
Yeah.
Everybody feels shame over that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm here to tell you that if you do a little groundwork, then you can avoid that to begin with. And then you can walk out like, your dog is like the most amazing dog ever. And aren't you that reflects on you as well, right? So I understand it. The vet is a tricky one.
It is a
but it
tricky
is
one.
worth the investment. And I just ask that people, the next puppy you get, maybe think of these 6 tenants and try to get these
At least some of them.
some of them under your belt next time. If the horse has left the barn with the dogs that you have now, so to speak, I just want people to think, with each successive dog, you do a little better. When you know more, you do better.
Yep. I mean, we talk a lot about that on our walks. On I mean, not even that long ago, I would have raised Twiggy very differently than I raised her in the beginning.
Yeah, and she's
4 years
3.
old.
3.
She's 3. Turned 3, I think, this month.
Yeah.
I would have, and that's only 3 years ago. So I think owning a dog, you're always kind of evolving and
You
growing.
should be always evolving, trying to do better next time. Same with your kids. I mean, look at Jacob. He's like so much better than you because
You should have him be on the podcast.
hey, Soph,
Hey,
bet I can make you cry.
bet.
All right. So remember, the criteria for Bet I Can Make You Cry is an animal story, not necessarily a dog story. This week, we do have a dog in the story, but also an elephant. All right, here we go. I don't think this is going to make you cry, but it is a really kind of a sweet story. All right, so this is written by Lorraine Murray. Looks like it was written back in 2008. Animal Advocacy for Animals wrote the feature on the Elephant Sanctuary in Hohenwald, Tennessee. And here's part of what they had to say back in 2008. Hohenwald, Tennessee, south of Nashville, lies in an area of forests, lakes, and rolling fields. Located in this rural paradise is the 2,700-acre Elephant Sanctuary, established in 1995 to provide protected natural habitat refuges where old, sick, and needy elephants can once again walk the earth in peace and dignity. It's making me cry already. The sanctuary's secondary mission is spreading the word about the crisis facing these social, sensitive, passionate, intense, playful, complex, exceedingly intelligent, and endangered creatures. All of the elephants currently living in the sanctuary were originally taken from herds in the wild when they were infants, which is heartbreaking. Most come to the elephant sanctuary after years of performing in circuses and in other entertainment venues. Many arrive with chronic illnesses, unresolved injuries. All have suffered from inadequate care, poor housing, isolation, stress. Some have suffered routine rough handling and outright abuse. So they loaded up their trucks and they moved to Tennessee. God's work, in other words.
Yep.
The world of animal lovers and animal advocates had always held the elephant sanctuary in high regard, but little did we know that within a few years the sanctuary would be in the news for a story of a remarkable friendship between one of the resident elephants, Tara, and a stray dog, Bella. Thanks to a number of reports by CBS's Steve Hartman, America and the world learned of this touching relationship in 2009. As Carol Buckley, one of the sanctuary's founders, explained, elephants seek out companionship. They're social animals, and when new elephants come in the sanctuary, they usually seek out and establish one special friendship with another animal who then becomes a boon companion. I think they mean barn companion.
Yeah.
These best friends are usually pairs of elephants who feel an affinity for one another. But in this case of Tara, that special someone was a dog. Tara is an Asian elephant who was born in Burma and was captured in 1974 and was imported to the United States before the trade became illegal. She came into Buckley's possession after Buckley became her caretaker, and they traveled around the country, Tara performing in circuses and zoos. Eventually, Buckley began to feel that it would be better for Tara to make only occasional appearances, and finally in 1995, she retired Tara from public life altogether and established the Elephant Sanctuary. As for Bella, she was one of a number of stray dogs who lived on the sanctuary ground. Her background is unknown, but the buff-colored, fluffy dog arrived somewhere in 2003 and befriended Tara. Despite the huge disparity in their sizes, Tara, at 8,700 pounds and at least 100 times the size of Bella, an average size apparently retriever-shepherd mix, And obviously, despite species differences, the two were kindred souls. They took long walks together, played in the water, and ate and slept together. The following, and they have a video that shows that. Oh, that makes me sad. In the video, both are doing just what animals of their kind do. Bella runs around Tara's leg ahead of her on the path, carrying a stick in her mouth, and Tara walks, sometimes lumberingly, and sometimes in a hurry, exploring her territory and enjoying the sun in the hills. But they are quite consciously together, each pacing herself to the other's gait and waiting for the other to catch up. The elephant sanctuary staff reported the two showed physical affection too. Tara would gently pet Bella's stomach with her foot and caress her with her trunk. The most touching illustration of their devotion came during Bella's infirmity in 2009. The dog suffered a serious injury that kept her immobile and under care in the sanctuary's second-floor office, keeping Tara and Bella apart for weeks. In the end, to ease Tara's worry, the staff finally picked up Bella and carried her to the balcony where her elephant friend could see her. Bella wagged her tail upon seeing her friend, and thereafter the therapeutic visits were repeated every day until Bella recovered. Once the dog regained her mobility, the two were reunited and resumed their happy friendship. Sadly, their 8 years together ended with the death of Bella in late 2011. It was believed that Bella was killed by coyotes.
Oh.
The sanctuary staff had also reason to believe that it was Tara who found her friend's body and carried her home to the barn where they spent so much time together.
Not gonna make me cry. Thanks. Oh my gosh.
In the days after her loss, the grieving elephant was comforted by other elephants. Robert Atkinson, the sanctuary CEO, said, "It's just it's just so heartbreaking, but also inspiring. Elephants need each other, and that's what's happening now. Is that in her time of grief, she is turning to her sisters for support, and that's what elephants are good at being a herd and being a family to help each other. We pay tribute to these two remarkable animals and their love and care they shared across species boundaries and for such a relatively brief time when in an elephant's lifespan. It's inspiring that two such different creatures saw past the things that they didn't have in common and instead found each other's common ground to last an 8-year devoted friendship. We wish Tara recovery from her grief, and as to the elephants, happiness in their future." Isn't that a good one?
Should have got her another dog.
Right? Give her another lab mix. Oh, I thought that was a sweetie.
Oh.
All right, so we're at how many minutes?
Hour and 17.
Oh, gosh. Jacob's like, you guys need to stop talking because I have to
Shut up.
edit this goddamn video. All right, we should wind it up.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a good topic.
I think so too.
So our goal next episode is to have a couple of guests on.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, because of the moving situation, we might have to delay that a week, but we're hoping to do that. If not, we'll be back next week with a regular episode. Our hope is to be back with a couple of groomer friends of ours to do a grooming episode.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed that we can get that done, and also all of the 500 things we have to get done to get this house on the market and shown.
Yay.
My life is never happy unless I have 500 plates spinning in the air.
Yep, that's very true. And luckily, I have to help you balance them.
Lucky. All right, so that's it for episode 3, season 2 of Dog for Thought. We will see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
Dog for Thought is written and hosted by me, Sarah Brown, co-hosted by Sophie Brown, produced, edited, and original music by Jacob Brown. Don't forget to like and subscribe.